Hi, Uten. This video is intended to outline the Sem 1 CAT, your research report for Area Study 2, Colonization and Conflict. So I'll be going through the instructions, the rubric, and the key details about this Area Study 2 CAT. So the purpose of this CAT is to essentially, as the title of our subject outlines, is to evaluate, did Australia get away with murder? So you're evaluating, was there a genocide against the Indigenous Australian people by the Australian government in our past history? So you need to respond to the following statement. So this is the key, inquiry question you're responding to throughout your presentation. The treatment of the Indigenous Australians by the Australian government post-colonisation should be considered a genocide. To what extent do you agree with this statement? So yes, no, or maybe. You form yourself a contention. I have an opinion, a point of view, a perspective. And then to support my contention, so if I say, yes, there was a genocide, I need to support that with evidence. So what I'm going to do is construct a research report. So I'm doing a bit of research and outlining the events of first contact, colonisation, the frontier wars, so conflict, the massacres against the Indigenous Australians, and the stolen generation. So those three topics should look familiar, not just because we studied them during Area Study 2, but those are the big three you got to choose from for your dev task. So hopefully at this point you've already got a bit of research on one of those three. You guys, for your dev, researched, you summarized, and you presented that information as well using a Harvard reference list, which is what you're going to be doing essentially in your CAT. So you're just adding on those other two topics that you haven't done. So listen to the dev feedback. Where can I improve? Do I need to diversify the sources I'm using? Do I need to put the research into my own words? And then you can use that to hopefully complete the CAT. Even the notes you've been taking throughout the term, hopefully you've got a lot of that information, that evidence prepared already to help you complete this CAT in a timely fashion. So I gather my research, and then to justify my final decision of yes, no, maybe this was a genocide, I need to talk about genocide. I can't call it a genocide unless I explain what it is. So throughout the presentation, you'll be trying to link and evaluate these key topics against the 10 stages of genocide and the Genocide Convention. Those are the frameworks we're using to assess whether or not a genocide has occurred. And you should be familiar with them because we've looked at them in Area Study 1. This information will be presented in a Google Slides template, and your sources recorded in a Harvard reference list. So while you're gathering research, make sure you're recording your sources properly. There will be 4 to 5 lessons provided to complete the CAT. Your personal notes completed through Area Study 2 and the research and the dev, again, will support your efforts in this assessment. Use class time effectively to gather research for each section. So there's roughly 4 or 5 sections. Try and smash out one each lesson. Ask questions. Please ask questions. It's the number one feedback we can give you. Ask questions. If I don't know the answer, ask a question. If I think I know the answer, ask a question. If I do know the answer, but I'm wondering how can I improve, how can I get better, ask a question. It's the best way to learn. One question equals one answer. One solution equals 1 mark. It's the only way you will improve. And then edit your assessment against the CAT rubric before the final submission in week 7. So your due date will probably be Thursday or Friday at the end of this week. We recognize that it is remote learning. It's going to be difficult for y'all. So if you need an extension on that due date, some of you might have exams, whether or not they're going ahead this week. But yeah, all you need to do if you need an extension is obviously ask. If we don't know there's a problem, we can't help you. But we'd love to help you if you let us know what you need to get through remote learning. So the CAT template that is provided in this presentation is designed to lead students to summarize information. So next to each of these key topics or key sections, we've told you it needs to be this many slides. And we've done that for a reason. 1, we don't want your workload to be ridiculous. Again, during remote learning, we don't want you to write out 7,000 essays. But 2, you're practicing what you did in the dev. You're summarizing information. You're taking a lot of information and saying, okay, this is the most important stuff, so I'm going to use that, and let's throw out the rest of this crap. So no walls of text. Keep it simple to read and simple to view. Practice your note-taking skills to effectively summarize your research. So the best advice we can give you, quality over quantity. I don't want any questions about, well, how many words does it need to be? It should be the quality of your research, not the quantity. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections for our dev. And you're trying to probably smash through one of these per lesson if you're doing this in a time-effective manner. We've designed it so hopefully it should be able to be completed in class. But if you feel like you're falling behind, you need a bit of extra time, complete it out of class. In this section, it's the first section, provide an overview of the term genocide. So you're going to spend one slide, defining the term genocide, differentiating between genocide and massacre and mass murder. And the best way to do that is to reference these two frameworks here. So look up the Genocide Convention 1948. Maybe give us some examples of what is genocide. You could use past case studies of genocide. You can give actions that are genocidal. The 10 stages of genocide would be a good thing to talk about in this slide as well. It's only one slide. Again, so pick the important information, not all the information. Section 2, 3, and 4, that's where your meat and potatoes is going to be. That's the majority of your presentation. It's those 3 key themes we've looked at in Area Study 2. For each of those, you're looking at 2 slides, and your research is going to give you evidence to support your claim that a genocide did or did not occur, or maybe it occurred to an extent. So the first one we're looking at is first contact, so Australian colonisation. Between the Indigenous Australians and European settlers, you're looking at things like terra nullius, day one, this is what happened. Early colonisation practices, how did they treat the Indigenous Australians? What was trade like? What was, was there violence? Was there spreads of disease? Was there, the impact of colonisation you could talk about specifically with evidence, sources, and statistics. Don't say it was bad. Give me numbers, give me dates, give me examples. Next part. Frontier wars. So we're looking at first violence now. So outline, that should say first violence. Oh no, first conflict. Yeah, okay. I'm tired. I need coffee. Conflict, violence, potato. Outline first conflict between the Indigenous Australians and the Europeans during Australian colonisation. So in this section, you're looking at the frontier wars. So we looked at Genmara's War, we looked at the Black War, the Black Line in Tasmania, but there's a number of different places you could go to look at warfare, massacres. We've worked on that Google map, the digital interactive map we've looked at, where we literally mapped out violence. That might be a good thing to reference or to look for as a research tool. You could look at other types of conflict, so not just the murder, but the human rights abuse that occurred, forced labor, slavery, dispossession of land. In the Tasmanian War, the Black War, you had people who were being exiled essentially to a different place and then being put into a place where their living conditions might be impacted by that new home. So talk about that. Stolen generation, 2 slides. Outline the events and impact of the stolen generation. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but a good way to structure these kind of big topics, we've got 2 slides, we've got 2 dot points. So maybe for stolen generation, you have 1 slide talking about how it happened, so the origins of the Australian government practices and the rationale for why we need this, and then 1 slide talking about the impact, so the immediate impact, so what happened to Aboriginals at the time, and what happened in the long term, so things like intergenerational trauma. You could reference the Closing the Gap report. You could reference the 2008 apology. There's a lot you could talk about for stolen generation, which is why it's important to pick out the most important things. Section 5, evaluating genocide. So this is the end of our presentation. To conclude your presentation, all you need to do, respond to that question on the very, very, very first slide. So you might start off your final section there by putting this, where's my mouse? There it is. Putting that at the start of your slide. So do I agree with this? Yes, no, maybe. And what you're doing in section 5 is then using, again, your knowledge of genocide of Area Study 1, the definition of genocide, to say yes, no, maybe this occurred, and then justifying it. For the rest of the slide, I'm going to say it's a genocide because, and then you connect the historical events in Australian history to that definition of genocide. So I can clearly see it's not a genocide because this didn't happen, or I can clearly say it is a genocide because this happened. So be specific in terms of how you're going to, I forgot the reference list. So create a Harvard reference list of the sources used in your research. I haven't put a limit on this. So 1, 2 slides, however many sources you're using. A good rule though would probably be for each of these sections, 2 or 3 sources should get the job done. So 2 or 3 plus 2 or 3 plus 2 or 3. I'm not a math teacher, you guys figure it out. But if you need help with the Harvard reference list protocols, you can check out that website there for some advice. It has the different types of sources and how to reference them properly. There's also tools like Cite This For Me, which are occasionally unreliable, but you should definitely check them out if you want a bit of guidance as well on how to reference, or you could ask the teacher questions. Questions are good. Now, the rubric is a separate file, but we've included it in the presentation template we're giving you so that you refer to it throughout your CAT process. So again, treat it like a checklist or a guide. Before you move on to section 2, look at the rubric for section 1. Have I done everything, and have I done it to this quality, or have I smashed it out at the top of my game? So the key things that are being underlined in your rubric criterion are basically guides for, this is how you get to the next level. So if I, for example, in section 1, define genocide, that's 1 mark. If I define it and then differentiate it, so I show how it's different between mass murder and massacres, and I provide evidence that connects that definition to the Genocide Convention, 2 marks. So you've got 2 marks there, 3, I'm not a math teacher, 15 total marks, I believe, hopefully. Sections 2, 3, and 4 being assessed on the same scale. So do I describe history? Do I outline history with supporting evidence? So bad stuff happened, and here are the details of that. And then the final one, analysis. Analysis is a fancy word, which is really, it's about explaining and evaluating, what happened. So this is what happened, number 2, 2 marks. This is what happened, here's why it happens, and here's why it was important, 3 marks here. So connecting history to genocide, to the 10 stages of genocide, to the Genocide Convention. So you do that for sections 2, 3, and 4. Section 5, your conclusion. So you're smashing out 1 mark if you have an opinion. So yes, genocide occurred, and then you move on. 2 marks if I say yes, genocide occurred, and here's why, or here's how I can support that view. Finally, the reference list. I've got some references. 2 marks, I've got them correctly formatted, and I've got a variety of both primary and secondary sources. That could be quotes, it could be entries in diaries or journals. Most people struggle with primary sources. You can find images as well, so paintings or photographs. Lots of stuff you could use there. Now, the actual cat will be located either in... Oh no, I've lost my face. I'm probably doing you a favor. The actual cat will be located in either Compass. So you've got your research report there, the rubric there, or depending on what your teacher has, they might have set it up in Google Classroom. So you can use the template that we've provided, that we've just gone through together, as your guide. So you can just kind of delete what I've written down and you can put your own details, or you can create a different presentation as long as you are following the instructions in the rubric in this cat file. We don't care how you get it done, but get it done. Yeah, I think that's all we need to cover, guys. Any questions or concerns, again, let your teacher know so we can help you out. Use your time effectively in class. I know that remote learning is stressful and overwhelming, so if you're feeling the crunch, let your teacher know. We can't help you out unless you tell us that you need to be helped out. If there's a fire, you call the fire department. Just stand there and be like, oh no, fire. If there's a fire at school, in your school life, call us, let us know, and we'll be happy to help you out. Best of luck with the cats, best of luck with remote learning, and thank you for listening. Cheers.